Why would anyone today, not actually studying it, give a toss about the literary scene in 1714?
Well, the literary scene in the early 18th century should interest anybody who's interested in literature, partly because some of the sort of genres of writing that we're still interested in and still enjoy were either invented then or kind of transformed then. So one of the great writers of the period, although not everybody realised this at the time, was Daniel Defoe, and he in effect invented the novel. You're interested in novels? Maybe you'd be interested in that. If you're not interested in that, you're incurious, I would say. So actually, Defoe, just to talk a bit more about him, wrote one of those books which, curiously, people I think they know because it's so famous and so influential, Robinson Crusoe, and yet probably very few people have actually read it or read it in its original version. They might have read children's versions of it. And that's where fiction starts, that's where adventure fiction starts. And it's an extraordinary book, and if you were to read it, I think you would find all sorts of unexpected things. And if you were to explore Defoe's fiction more widely, you would find an incredibly inventive novelist who's actually doing things which would influence fiction writers ever after. But also it's a time of incredible freedom and experiment in writing. So Defoe invents the novel, but then there are these incredible satirists, Alexander Pope, Jonathan Swift, just the most famous, but others as well, John Gay, great friend of theirs. And it's the first real age of sort of press freedom. And I mean, this is the second reason why it's so fascinating, actually. The end of the 17th century, in effect, censorship, state control over publishing is removed. And there's a kind of outpouring. A lot of that outpouring is twaddle, rubbish, fantastic, exciting, bilge, journalism. They invent journalism. You know, I mean, all this stuff that's so familiar to us, it's all invented in the early 18th century. But the high end, the satirists who have this new kind of freedom, write, in Pope's case, the most gorgeous, beautiful, intricate, satirical poetry ever written, in my opinion. And in Swift's case, the most deadly, frightening, still incredibly unsettling satirical prose ever written. I mean, people still say, whenever, you know, Charlie Hebdo, what do people talk about? They reach around for analogies. Oh, satire changes the world. And they always cite Swift's Modest Proposal. Probably a satire that most people haven't read, but they've heard of it. An incredible sort of mock pamphlet proposing that overpopulation and starvation in Ireland can both be cured at the same time by making the Irish eat their babies, you know. So, if you're not interested in that, what are you interested in?
Thank you. Okay, so Pete, I think this is something you actually pointed out to me. People, I'm going to stop